Hey Genderqueerchat, happy Thursday, it's Matt. Really interesting question this week. I think it was suggested by Jay, and it is, if you are or were to become a parent, how would you approach gender with your child? How would you express yourself to them? What would you have them call you? How would you approach their gender? So yeah, it's a really interesting question, probably something that I can give a bit of maybe a different perspective from, in the sense that I am actually a parent. So I'm luckily enough to be a parent of a teenage daughter, and it has been in sort of recent years, since they've been a teenager, that I've been able to explore and talk about my gender, my identity, stuff like that with them, and have more of a dialogue and communication. So it's something that's only been talked about kind of more in recent times, as that's been the timing when I have been more open and more understanding my own gender, and have had the language and the need and wanting to express it more. So my daughter's actually watched some of my Genderqueerchat videos and some of the videos of the other contributors. So and we've had sort of discussions around that. So I kind of feel like they have a good understanding of what genderqueer is, what that means to me, and maybe a bit of an awareness of the fact that gender isn't the way that necessarily the way that it is presented in normal, everyday, regular society and socialisation. So yeah, my approach, the way that I have approached gender with my child is probably different to how I would approach gender if I was to have another child or something like that, which I don't plan on doing, of course, but if that was the case, then I'd probably tackle it quite a bit differently to how I did, and that's only because my own awareness of gender issues and my understanding of my own identity and my own views on like society and culture and gender roles and socialisation and all that stuff is considerably different to where I was at when I first found myself in that kind of role. So I think I've always been the same around my child throughout all of this. So I definitely express myself in the same way now as I did years ago when they were younger, even though I didn't have the language or understanding of myself to be able to sort of verbalise what I was thinking and feeling about gender. I think the way that I have been and the way that I've expressed myself as a parent and as a person, and the role that I've taken and the relationship that I've had with my child, I think speaks very directly to how I identify gender-wise. And I think I've done things a little bit different and not exactly the norm, and not exactly conforming with sort of gendered stereotypes of, bullshit stereotypes of, male and female roles as a parent. So I think I've been pretty consistent with that, and I'm pretty happy with the way that I think I've come across. It is nice to have the language these days to be able to talk more with my kid about that and let them know how I sort of identify and how I feel. So yeah, in regards to how my daughter refers to me, they call me dad, father, whatever, and I'm okay with that. I think if I was to have a do-over and have that experience again, I'd probably try and think of a better terminology, a gender-neutral or more gender-neutral terminology rather than father or dad. But that's what I am to my daughter. That's what I've always been, and I don't intend to change that. So I'm quite happy for her to view me as dad and call me dad and whatever. I don't see that as a gendered thing. I think with that particular word there comes a whole bunch of gendered preconceptions or understandings to do with what that word, that role, that term means. And I think I've managed to break most of those during my time as a father, as a parent. So I'm quite happy that what dad means to my child is something that's representative of me rather than something that's representative of that particular term. Having said that, I think it would be great if there was some kind of more gender-neutral or flexible terminology that was not attached necessarily to that kind of societal convention, and I think that would be really helpful, both for parents who don't necessarily feel like they fit into those roles, but also same-sex couples, just as a better way of understanding and seeing people as people and expressing it that way without needing to buy into some kind of gender roles or social hierarchies or whatever. So how would I approach their gender? So with my child, I do have a pretty open dialogue about that sort of stuff. I would be accepting of her no matter what. If she had her own gender issues, sexuality issues, anything. Like, I'd be accepting and understanding and supportive as much as I could and listen to her. And I think the relationship that we have has a pretty open line of communication about that. So I feel confident that if she needed to talk to me about something like that, that she'd come to me and that I'd be able to handle it as best that I could. Once again, if I was to have a do-over and experience that again, knowing what I know now as opposed to what I knew like 14 years ago, I think I'd approach it fairly differently. I think I'd want to have more of an active role in actually educating my child about gender and the way that I see gender, and probably ingrain in them a little bit more that there is more out there than meets the eye, or what normal society tends to put forward in regards to gender, in regards to sexuality, in regards to just being accepting of different people, and seeing that I'm lucky that my daughter is a very open-minded and accepting individual who tends to see people rather than, gender or whatever else. So I'm really lucky in that respect. But I think, definitely in the same way that I like to educate other people about gender and talk about gender and share what I've learned about gender, I'd like to be able to impart that on my child or children in general. So I think I would be much more active in talking about non-binary kind of stuff and letting my child know that there's more than just male or female, mother or father, whatever, and talk about things like the way society views gender and the way that that's passed down, and that's not always the way that things are. So I think I'd be probably much more proactive, I guess, in talking about gender and sexuality and things like that with my child, in the hopes that they would grow up and be really accepting. So if they had issues themselves to do with that sort of thing, or if they knew someone, friend at school, family member, whatever, or their own children one day that maybe had their own kind of gender concerns or challenges, sexuality or whatever, that they would be accepting and try and break down some of those stereotypes and misconceptions and gender binary bullshit that we all put up with. So so really interesting question, and the videos this week have been fantastic. It was really good to hear what Joe and Jay and Christina have said so far. So and really keen to see what everyone else has to say. Awesome. I'll see you next week.